What if I told you that Ukraine has just done something no one expected? A move so bold, so shocking, that it has left the world in disbelief. This is not a nuclear explosion. This is a Russian airbase getting wiped out. A place where Russia's deadliest bombers were stationed. Now nothing but fire and rubble. And if that wasn't shocking enough, Ukraine has just done the unthinkable. They have invaded Russia. Yes, Ukrainian forces have crossed the border and are now inside Belgorod. This is the first time since World War II that Russian land is under attack. Russia always thought it was safe, that no one would dare strike this deep. But last night, everything changed. A surprise attack, a massive explosion, panic in Moscow. And now, the world is asking, what happens next? This isn't just another battlefield update. This is history unfolding right in front of us. And in the next few minutes, I'll break it all down. What happened, why it matters, and what this means for the future. So stay with me, because this war has just taken a terrifying turn. Russia's Engels II airbase, one of its most strategic military sites, is now nothing but a smoking ruin. This wasn't just an airfield, it was a fortress of destruction, housing some of Russia's most powerful bombers. The Tu-95M, Tu-22M3, and Tu-160. These weren't just aircraft, they were war machines, responsible for launching glide bombs that had devastated Ukrainian cities, hospitals, and power stations. But last night, Ukraine struck back, hard. A precision strike ripped through the base, triggering a colossal explosion that sent a fireball into the sky. The force of the blast obliterated everything within a 5-kilometer radius. Ammunition depots, gone, fuel reserves, destroyed, several Russian bombers, possibly reduced to rubble. The shockwaves were so intense that they reportedly shattered windows in towns miles away. But here's the real mystery. How did Ukraine pull this off? Was this a stealth drone strike, or did Ukraine just unveil its most powerful long-range weapon yet, the Neptune missile? If Neptune was involved, this marks a game-changing moment in the war, because it would mean Ukraine now has the capability to hit deep inside Russia, far beyond the front lines. And if Ukraine can do this once, what's stopping them from doing it again? Moscow just learned the hard way. Nowhere is truly safe. For the second time in this war, Ukraine has invaded Russia. But this isn't just a raid, this could be the beginning of something much bigger. After safely pulling back from the Kursk region, Ukrainian forces have now launched a bold new assault on Russian soil. Their target? Belgorod. A city that was once far from the battlefield is now at the center of a military nightmare for Russia. On March 18, 2024, reports began flooding in. Ukrainian troops had crossed the border. Within hours, Russian war bloggers were sounding the alarm, posting frantic updates about Ukrainian soldiers, armored vehicles, and tanks pushing into Russian territory. Then came the panic. Suddenly, sirens blared across Belgorod. Authorities rushed to announce emergency evacuations, urging civilians to leave immediately. Streets once filled with daily life turned into chaos. Families grabbed whatever they could carry, piling into overcrowded buses as Russian officials hurried to get people out. And here's where it gets historic. This invasion makes Vladimir Putin the first Russian leader since World War II to face a direct attack on home soil. The man who once dreamed of conquering Kiev is now watching his own people flee in terror. His military? Unprepared. His citizens? Frightened. His reputation? Shattered. But this invasion isn't just about military tactics. It raises a massive question. Is this a quick strike? A message from Ukraine that nowhere in Russia is safe? Or is this the start of something bigger? Could Ukraine actually be capturing Russian land? If that's the case, then this war isn't just changing, it's exploding into a whole new reality. For months, Russia believed its military bases deep inside the country were untouchable. But then came a silent killer, one that changed everything: the Neptune missile. Originally designed as an anti-ship weapon, the Neptune made history in 2022 when it did the unthinkable. It sank the Moskva, Russia's prized Black Sea flagship. A ship that was supposed to be unsinkable went down in flames, marking one of Russia's most humiliating defeats. But Ukraine didn't stop there. They took the same missile and transformed it into something far deadlier. A land attack version with a 1,000-kilometer range. That means Ukraine can now hit deep inside Russia, far beyond the front lines. Oil refineries, airfields, ammunition depots, even Moscow itself. Nowhere is safe anymore. And here's the biggest advantage. Unlike Western weapons, there are no restrictions on its use. The US and Europe have rules about how Ukraine can use their missiles, but Neptune? Ukraine can fire it anywhere, anytime. The secret behind its power? Stealth. The Neptune flies low, hugging the terrain to avoid radar detection. It uses electronic warfare and stealth decoys to trick Russian air defenses into chasing ghost targets. By the time Russia realizes what's happening, it's too late. This is more than just a missile, it's a message to Moscow. Ukraine now has the ability to strike anywhere inside Russia. And the question isn't if they'll use it again. The question is, when? Russia's biggest threat isn't NATO. It's not Ukraine. It's something far deadlier, and Putin can't bomb his way out of it. Russia is running out of people. Right now, Russia's fertility rate is just 1.5. To keep a population stable, it needs to be at 2.1. Anything lower means the country is shrinking, and that's exactly what's happening. Every year, more Russians are dying than being born. And here's where it gets crazy. Russia is the largest country on Earth. It stretches across 11 time zones, covering more land than the US and China combined. Yet, its population is just 143 million. Compare that to Bangladesh, a country that is 116 times smaller but has 30 million more people. Even Japan, which has no natural resources and barely any land, still has a similar population to Russia. And it's not just about numbers, it's where people are disappearing. While Moscow is growing, Russia's heartland is dying. Small towns are turning into ghost lands. Siberia and the Russian Far East, once full of industry and military towns, are now emptying out. Why? Because life there is brutal. Freezing temperatures, no jobs, no future. Young people are leaving in record numbers. Some move to Moscow. Others leave Russia entirely, looking for a better life in Europe or even China. Putin can keep fighting wars. He can build missiles, tanks, and nuclear bombs. But without people, Russia is slowly collapsing from the inside. And the scariest part? There's no way to stop it. Russia's population crisis isn't new. It didn't start with this war. It's been happening for over a century. Every generation, Russia has suffered catastrophic losses, and it never truly recovered. It all started with the Russian Revolution, 1917 to 1923. Civil war tore the country apart. Famine, disease, and executions killed millions. Entire cities collapsed, and Russia's population took its first major hit. Then came Stalin's brutal rule in the 1930s. His forced industrialization and collectivization policies led to mass starvation. The Holodomor alone, a man-made famine, wiped out millions in Ukraine and southern Russia. Those who survived were either too weak, too poor, or sent to the gulags. But the biggest blow came during World War II. The Great Patriotic War, 1941 to 1945, was the deadliest conflict in Russian history. More than 27 million Soviets died. That's 67 times more than the US lost in the war. Cities were burned to the ground, entire generations of men were wiped out, and Russia's population never fully recovered. Even today, if you look at Russia's population pyramid, you can still see the scars of World War II. The gaps in birth rates, the missing generations, it's all there. Every war, every crisis has left permanent damage. And now, with birth rates at an all-time low, Russia is running out of time. Can a country survive if it keeps losing its people? For years, Russia waged a psychological war against Ukraine, spreading propaganda, showing off its military might and convincing its people that Russia was unstoppable. But now, that illusion is collapsing. After the Engels 2 airbase explosion and the Belgorod invasion, something Putin never expected is happening. Fear is spreading inside Russia itself. The war, which the Kremlin always presented as a special military operation happening far away, is now knocking on Russia's own door. The Moscow-controlled media is scrambling to cover up Ukraine's deep strikes. They're calling it fake news, downplaying the attacks, and banning discussions on social media. But the truth? It's leaking through. Videos of civilians fleeing Belgorod, soldiers panicking as air raid sirens go off, and fireballs rising from destroyed Russian military sites. These are now spreading across Telegram, even among Russians who once believed Putin's lies. And now, for the first time in decades, Russians are scared. Parents are desperately trying to pull their sons out of military service. Young men are fleeing the country, looking for any way to escape Putin's next draft. Even high-ranking officials are rumored to be moving their families out of Moscow, just in case the war comes closer. This is no longer just a battle for land. This is a battle for the Russian people's minds. And as Ukraine keeps pushing further, the fear inside Russia is only getting stronger. Even if Putin wants to strike back, who will fight for him? Russia has already suffered over 300,000 casualties in this war. Thousands more are wounded, captured, or simply refusing to return to the battlefield. In some regions, entire military units have been wiped out, leaving commanders with a devastating problem. Russia is running out of experienced soldiers. And the ones who are still fighting? Many of them aren't even real soldiers. Russia has been forced to recruit from prisons, offering murderers and thieves a chance at freedom if they agree to fight. It has lowered the draft age, pulling in older men with little to no combat training. It has even turned to foreign mercenaries, hiring fighters from Africa, Syria, and even Iran to fill the gaps. But this isn't World War II. This isn't the Soviet Union. Russians today don't want to die for Putin's war. Desertions are increasing. Morale is collapsing. And as Ukraine keeps pushing deeper into Russian territory, the question isn't just how many soldiers Russia has left. It's how many are even willing to fight. Because if an army loses its will to fight, it doesn't matter how many weapons it has. The war is already lost. Russia's biggest problem isn't just Ukraine, it's Russia itself. This war was supposed to be over in weeks. That's what Putin told his people. But now, after 2 years of heavy losses, Russians are starting to question everything. Thousands of young men have fled the country to escape the draft. Entire villages are empty, businesses are struggling, and people are losing faith in their own government. But the real cracks are showing inside Russia's military. The Wagner rebellion proved that not everyone inside Russia's own forces is loyal. When Yevgeny Prigozhin, once a key Putin ally, turned against Moscow and marched toward the capital, it sent shockwaves through Russia. Soldiers, officials, and even some generals stood by and watched, too scared or too unsure to act. The rebellion failed, but the damage was done. It showed the world that Russia is divided, and now that division is only getting worse. Reports are coming in of Russian soldiers refusing to fight. Some are even abandoning their units, while others surrender at the first chance they get. The worst part? Some fighters have even switched sides, joining groups that are now attacking Russian territory. Russia thought it was untouchable. Now its air bases are burning, its borders are breached, and its population is collapsing. This war isn't just about territory anymore, it's about survival. Ukraine has proven that it can strike deep inside Russia and get away with it. The question is, will they stop here? Or is this just the beginning of a larger counteroffensive? And what about Russia? Can Putin recover from this humiliation? Can he stop Ukraine's Neptune missiles before they take out more key targets? Or is he running out of options and running out of time? One thing is certain, this war is changing faster than anyone expected. And as the battles keep evolving, I'll be here to break it all down for you. Smash that like button hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the biggest conflict of our time. This is far from over. Stay tuned.